Hello, and welcome to the Designing with Love podcast. I am your host, Jackie Pellegrin, where my goal is to bring you information, tips, and tricks as an instructional designer. Hello, instructional designers and educators. Welcome to episode 100 of the Designing with Love podcast. Today, I'm kicking off a 3-part series with Hamza Sami on teaching and learning in the age of AI. Hamza works extensively with UK's Pearson Business and Technology Education Council, or BTEC, which offers career-focused, competency-based programs recognized internationally. In addition, he leads curriculum design and quality assurance. Welcome to the show, Hamza.
Thank you, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and I'm so glad you're a fan of the show. That's how you discovered me, and we got connected on LinkedIn, and so it's great. And then I rolled out the welcome mat for you to come on the show. So I'm so happy that we're doing this. It's great. So to start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and share what inspired you to focus on curriculum design in the higher education industry?
Sure. So I work as an academic manager at Excel International Academy, which is a Pearson approach center based in Turkey. What we do is we adopt the 2+1 system. So basically, we provide HND in the first 2 years for our students, HND Higher National Diploma. And this counts as the first 2 years of the bachelor in the UK. And the third year, actually, it's the last year of the bachelor program. Our students, they go to the UK in one of our partner universities there, and they finish the bachelor because in the UK the bachelor degree is only 3 years. I finished. Now, about to answer your question, how I got into the curriculum design. And my interest to that area. I come from a multimedia design background and creative production background. I finished my bachelor degree back in the United Arab Emirates in the American University of Sharjah around in 2012. Yeah, I graduated. And I worked as a photographer, videographer, and graphic designer for around 6 years, like full-time and also a freelance jobs, in Dubai. But I found that I had limitations with my career. Like, for example, I always wanted to add values to my work, and sometimes the companies or the areas or the fields I'm working for, I have problem with my principles. For example, like if I was offered a job in a TV channel or network, they usually have their own agenda, and which contradicts mine. So I felt that there's some limitation. Also, the idea of having to manipulate your audience with your work,
Right.
This is something I found in doing like media work usually. So I decided to go to Vietnam as to take a self-discovery trip or journey, if you would say. And there, for a couple of months, I stayed there. I realized that education is what I need to explore, because we all have this one teacher or more, actually, who affected our own life with their character or what they taught us. So I felt if I can influence one student or one person at a time, it will be like I've done my mission in this life. So I thought, what's wrong with education? Why do we hate learning? While as kids, we have this urge to learn and to discover and to explore things. And I think it's the problem with the curriculum, the way we are being taught, that delivery of teaching. So I thought to explore that area. And it is when I went back to Dubai and I joined I worked as an art director at a Arabic language center. And I talked to the manager there. I asked her to teach some like Arabic language and to try teaching. I want to experiment with that area, and I taught some kids for a couple of months, and it was great. Then I had to move to Turkey, where I'm based now, with no experience, of course, in the education sector, and I applied to Excel as a teacher, a media teacher, and like they accepted me, and I tried my my luck with them. I taught for a year like 3 modules: film and audio studies and photography. Then I was offered the media program coordinator for a couple of years. Then I was promoted to academic manager. This is how I reached. And after I was promoted to academic manager, I applied for a Master of Education. And there I focused on the curriculum development and challenges. And yeah, so
Wow.
this is, and this is just more information.
Yeah. Right. So so that started your passion of being able to teach a different language to students. Wow. And teaching them that. Wow. I love that. Yeah. And that sparked your interest and really got you into education and noticing that there was something with curriculum that needed improvement. And so I love that. You saw a gap and you saw a need and you wanted to be able to help and fill it.
Yeah. It's a journey because I had to shift my career. I used to work in production, then I started from zero, in the education. So yeah, it was a challenge.
Yeah, it's amazing how this field, instructional design and curriculum design, how it's a field that keeps evolving and keeps growing. So it's great. You and I were talking about before we hit the record button, how, you're coming into this field as well, and with instructional design, and how I've been teaching for a while. And, it helps me stay fresh too, because with everything going on, and now, like what we're going to talk about in a little bit with AI, it's really rocked education in a way that I don't think anybody expected it to. So it's really challenged me, not only as someone that works as an instructional designer in the field in higher education, but also as an instructor. It's challenged me as well, and but it also allows me to step up my game a little bit more and say, okay, we can't just continually do things the same way. It's not always going to work that way. So we have to be able to pivot. We have to be able to change a little bit and make things a little bit better. Yeah. And know that in the age of AI that we can still make things human, and we can still put our personality into things, and it doesn't have to be, it can be human still, even in the age of all of this machinery and technology, right? That we can still have that human side of it. So
definitely, I don't believe that human will be like the human factor will be replaced by AI. Of course, we will always need the human because we are the one who created AI after all. So we're the owners, and it's not like a new entity. It's from us. Just a tool to serve us in a way.
Right.
But
exactly.
I agree. It's development it's very growing very fast, and it's kind of scary. You need to keep up every week. Every week something new is showing up. So you just need to keep up. With all the developments and the inventions, and
Right. It's amazing. Yeah. And hopefully it's used for more good than anything else. So yeah, that's great. So kind of to set that foundation for my listeners, how do you explain generative AI to students so it becomes a learning partner rather than a shortcut? Because I've had to do that with my students. So what's one simple way you can kind of explain that to them? Hello, I have some exciting news to share with all of my listeners. There is a feature called fan mail. What this allows you to do is send me a text message anytime during the episode. There's a link located at the top of the description in each episode, and it says send Jackie a text message. So when you click on that link, you'll be able to send me a message letting me know what you thought about the episode and if you have any ideas for future episode content as well. I look forward to seeing your text messages. Thank you.
Well, I like how you use the learning partner, which how AI should be. But first, we can define what we mean by generative AI. It's the type of AI that can create new content or ideas, stories, images, videos, music, these things. Now, when we speak about AI generative tools, the most popular one is ChatGPT. And I actually did my master's dissertation on the use of ChatGPT in education. When you log to OpenAI ChatGPT's website, at the bottom of that page in small font, you will read ChatGPT can make mistakes.
Right.
Consider checking important information. So I think this tells you exactly what we are dealing with. Now, it can be argued that, humans can make mistakes also. What's the difference? But the thing is, unlike the AI, humans have the capability to practice critical thinking. Now, this is something you cannot find in AI. So maybe this is what we need to do. What we need to teach our students how to use critical thinking to double check the sources, the information generated by these AI tools. After all, they are tools. They are not. They are not humans. Even humans, they make mistakes. I always do this analogy of we all have this friend who knows everything. They can never be wrong about whenever you ask them. They have an opinion about everything. They know everything, and sometimes they do, right? But they don't know everything. Now, this is exactly how AI acts. They have you ever asked AI and they told you we don't know the answer? So
Yes,
they are not built with that feature, just like that friend who always knows something about everything. So what you do with this friend is you basically double check what they say. If they give you an advice on a legal issue, you don't just go and do it. You have to ask a lawyer. So this is how we should look at AI in general. Okay, they give you information. Just go double check them, the accuracy of that information provided. Yeah, this is basically this can be the foundation of how we look at AI, and also the over reliance on it. It can affect our skills badly. That's another thing.
Right. Yeah, the over reliance on it, and I like that term too. Learning partner. I've sometimes used. I've heard the term on some of with my other guests. They've used the term collaborative partner as well. So I think the key is that it's coming alongside you, and you're using it to help generate ideas, but the final product, I always tell my students, the final product always has to be yours. You can't have it be AI generated. And so it's always important. And I have actually the university has established this, but I kind of took it and ran with it. So in all my announcements, Hamza, I have this AI stoplight method. It's a reminder that I have in all my weekly announcements. And I'm like, green light means this and yellow light means, so it's that caution, and then the red light means you cannot use it for any reflections or anything like that. That has to be your own words, right?
That's
your own thoughts.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. And then for assignments where, because I have, of course, some classes that I'm teaching where they have to utilize AI to be able to have those conversations and kind of figure out how would they handle this. It's in a safe setting, right? And how would they handle it in the workplace? So it's very interesting. And they utilize it actually to, even in one assignment, to help them generate some content, or just to, kind of get started with the e-learning module on workplace safety. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting, because some of them are in K through 12 education. They don't know, workplace training and things like that. So it's very interesting to kind of see how they use it. But some of my students have actually told me right up front, they're like, I feel like I'm cheating when I use AI. And I'm like, see, that's your intuition telling you that you have guardrails in place. And that's great, that you're not just forging full ahead, but you're thinking about it. And I said, I understand, sometimes I thought I was cheating too, but I said, as long as you're not utilizing it as your own work and you're being ethical, I think you can use it. Just be cautious about how you're using it. So
that's
important.
Interesting. I thought it's only me who feels this way, because actually I feel I'm doing something wrong with that when I use it. And I heard from my students also, like I noticed that from my students when we talked about publicly discussing the use of AI, and they were surprised by are we allowed to do that? Because they try to hide it,
Right.
as we do, because we feel, okay, now whoever will read this, they will think they used AI, so it's not entirely our work. We think this in our head whenever we use AI, and it gives us a nice polished answer, or you know what I mean, especially when we're doing something written. So we feel like, oh, should I use that, or I just want it to be authentic and totally mine. When someone asks me, did you use AI? I tell them, no, I didn't. It feels like I'm doing something wrong, and it's a stain on my work. I don't want to have it.
You're
But
right, exactly.
that's natural. But it's the question is how to use it and when to use it. Mainly, not if we can use it or not. Definitely we can, but when and how.
Right, exactly. And that kind of goes into, my next question too, about classroom culture, right? That starts on day one. If you introduce guardrails and not really rules, but just more of like guidance around AI, and you wait until week 3 of the class, that's not a good way to start off. So it starts with day one in that culture. So what are some norms and expectations you think instructors should set with students to help guide that ethical use of AI without shutting down curiosity?
Yes, actually, it's important when you said without shutting down curiosity. We want to promote academic freedom. It's very important because all sources of information, we encourage students to use them. Now, about the norms and expectations, usually they can be found in the school's policy or AI use of guides. We can only refer the students to these, but after all, they might read it, they might not understand it. But of course, if we are talking about the schools that integrate and allow the use of AI, not blocking it, because I found that in my research, I found that some universities, they actually block the use. They don't allow. They forbid the use of AI in education, which is very strange.
That is.
It's very strange. Method to deal with such tool. Now, to answer your question, first, the instructors should be educated about the limitation of AI. They should have the digital or the AI literacy, which actually my proposal for in the research I've done, it was a professional development in the form of teacher training using David Kolb's experiential learning theory. Where I propose that the teachers should apply it on themselves. Actually, I applied it on myself before I chose the topic for my master's dissertation. I haven't used ChatGPT before, so I wanted to apply it. I have a negative opinion about it. So I wanted to test it, and apply it on myself. This this tool, I wanted to see how it works and what good can come from it. So I applied Kolb's theory on myself, and I started experimenting with it. And actually, it was about by the end of my dissertation, I was like 180 degree the opposite. I was like, okay, that's not actually too bad. It's just like any other sources. I can, if we're talking about cheating and plagiarism, we can do it with any sort of any way, any method we can use.
Right.
So I think, yeah, the the instructors first should be aware of the limitations. Then they can pass it to the students. Then another important aspect also of the teacher's role is to be a role model for the students. They have to equip the students with a responsible mindsets through their leadership. Also, they need to explain now for the students, if they understand why this subject is important, why I'm learning this subject, how is it important in my field, or what is learning and how I gain knowledge. I think they will understand how to use it, naturally. If I come to ChatGPT and ask it to write a report or a task or an assignment for me, I actually didn't learn anything. I just, even if I read it, I didn't do the hard work. I didn't experiment it myself,
Right.
So the students they should know that this way they will not learn, and if they don't learn, it will affect their career eventually. If they are thinking about their career, so knowing the consequences of the misuse of AI can help also in that area. When to use it, how to use it, we spoke about that. Now, also from the instructor, they can promote open discussion. The students they need to openly discuss their experience and the outcome of that use. We were talking about like when they feel they are doing something wrong, when they use AI. Now, if they openly discuss their use with the teacher, then the teacher can actually like guide them into the correct use. And this way they can acknowledge their use, so it's no longer plagiarism. They are not doing something. They are not claiming it's their own work, even if they copy pasted it from the AI response.
Right.
They are not doing something wrong if they claim, unless they claim. They need to understand what is plagiarism.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And before AI became such a huge thing, there were students were cheating before that. So I always look at it, if they cheated before, then they're just using another way to cheat. So,
exactly. It's just a new way. Before even Google was invented, we had cheating, right? People used to pay other people to do their assignment for them. And now you don't need to pay. It's free. That's the difference. And you can have a unique, you can just even ask the AI or any tool to imitate your style of writing. So the AI detector or the instructor wouldn't recognize your work, or recognize it's an AI generated material.
Right. That's true. Yeah. That's interesting. And I've even heard like some people like in my circle of curriculum development, and even some of my students saying that if you see the M dash in writing, that people are automatically thinking it's AI. But I know people that are editors that are like, well, the M dash is actually it's been around for a long time, and it's actually a really good thing to use. So, people think they have to take the M dash out of everything because it's going to flag it as, oh, that's AI generated. So it's really funny, but you can actually, I did an experiment too. It's funny. I asked AI, I was like, can you take any of the responses, make sure there's no M dashes in it. And it did. It just took them out. So,
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
So actually, I found an interesting, when I was doing the literature review for my study, I found an interesting paper that said that there was an increase in some verbs or words after the invention of ChatGPT. For example, the word delve, it's used a lot,
Yes.
or
It's used a
nuance.
lot. Yep.
Okay, but this is an actual word people use it. What's wrong with that? And
Right.
even if I use ChatGPT once, I learn from it.
Right.
I actually do. I learn from it. Actually, what's interesting? What made me choose this topic in my dissertation is I was watching a video of. I haven't used ChatGPT before that video, so I was watching a video of some YouTubers who were experimenting, asking ChatGPT questions and reading the answer, and they comment on it. So I noticed how the answer was exactly how we want our students to cover the assessment criteria. To evaluate. How to evaluate? First, you need to define the subject. Then you need to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages, and give your opinion. And you know what I mean. So I thought that's actually great. We can teach our students how to evaluate, how to analyze by just reading the responses and imitate it, but in their own words. That's the only difference. So we can learn from AI. What's wrong with that? If I noticed like the way it phrases a sentence, and I can use it in my writing. So does that mean I'm plagiarizing? No, I'm just learning.
Right. Yeah. You're just learning how to do, it's interesting too, like, because I'm writing a book, and it's based on one of the most popular podcast episodes. And I had the structure of it all laid out, and the manuscript's pretty much ready to go. But as I was looking through the chapters, Hamza, I was like, something seems off, because it's all about the ID models and theories. And, typically you want to, like we know as educators, you want to start with the simple ones first and then go into the more complicated ones. But I felt like the order of my chapters was just, something was not right with it. So I decided, you know what, I'll take ChatGPT. I'll stick my chapters in there and then ask it, is this a good format? Is this in a good order? Can you make any suggestions for me on the chapter order? And it came back and it said, yeah, you're good. You've got a good structure here. Chapters 1 through 5 look good. But then in the middle, it seemed like things were just kind of a little bit, I knew something was off, and it gave me really good suggestions. But then it also said, why don't you break it into parts? Because then you reduce cognitive load. And I'm like, wow, I should know that. I'm an instructional designer, but it just was like it's like a light bulb moment. I'm like, gosh, why didn't, but I was like, 20 chapters is a lot. So I did that. I broke it into sections, and I just took ChatGPT's ideas. I didn't, and I just kind of massaged it a little bit, worked, with the wording, but it was really neat because if, I don't know. I may have thought of that on my own, but maybe not. It may have taken me 6 months down the road, or it may have taken a publisher to go, hey, why don't you do this? So for me to, kind of think of that on the front end of it instead of later on was kind of neat. So that's a good example of how we can utilize it to come up with ideas and improve what we're already doing. Right. Yeah.
Yes. And thank you for sharing that experience, because it made me think of the impact of ChatGPT or use of AI on our mental health, right? Like questioning ourselves, what's wrong with me? Why I didn't think of this way? Or you know what I mean? Questioning our ability to think better than AI. That's an interesting area to explore. Also, the influence of AI on the mental health of the users.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. And, so I wanted to kind of go over, because we were talking about, how to set up that classroom for success. So, design choices can also reduce misuse. So are there different types of assignment structures? Maybe you could share one that increase authentic learning while lowering the incentive to outsource work to AI. Because this is something we're doing a lot in our university with authentic assessments and trying to not necessarily we don't want students to think that they don't write anymore because, they can just take and have AI write a paper for them, but we want to make it authentic for them. So are there some ways that they can do that?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of ways actually to do that. When we design the assignments, we actually in our center we follow the assignment-based system. We don't do exams. We ask the students to cover the assessment criteria, which is provided by Pearson, by doing some dividing the assignment into parts. And these parts they include the presentation and a report, for example, reflective review. So for the presentations, we already discussed the students would present their work, and after that we have the Q&A discussion session. This way we can know that the learner understand what they said, even if they copied it from or used ChatGPT, or even if they acknowledged it, it's fine. But eventually they learned what we want them to learn. The purpose is done. No matter how it is done, but it's done eventually, and they have the correct information. We can fix it for them. But for the written part, for example, the reports, here we have a problem, because if they submit it without discussing it with us and without Q&A, now we will be in that area where we suspect that they use of AI, and we put it in the AI detectors, and we might accuse them of plagiarizing and so on. So what we did is we asked them to discuss what they've done. How did they write the report, for example? What did they cover in the report? And we asked them questions just like a presentation,
Right.
But instead of a presentation, it's a discussion, So this way we can understand they know what they wrote, they understand what they wrote, they comprehend it, and also we make sure that we witness their understanding, not only we read it somewhere. I think also focusing on increasing the higher order thinking skills in that sense, it's very important with the use of AI, because we want to leave the first levels of Bloom's taxonomy, like explain, define, remember. These things can be done in the classroom activities. But we need to increase the critical thinking, the evaluation, the analysis. We want to hear the student's opinion on everything that you say. Okay, even if you wrote this definition, what do you think of it? When we hear the student's opinion, okay, they can also ask AI for that, but we can understand. We can like this way we can encourage them to have their own opinion, not only copy what AI said, or
Right.
even if they can say that I used, for example, I used ChatGPT about this topic, and they said this, but I think they are wrong about this, and I think this way about this topic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Acknowledging the use of AI, it's very important also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's so important because I noticed with the program that I help teach for, the instructional design program, it's a master's level program. And so I teach the instructional design courses. We talked a little bit about that. So what's great about the program, the way they built it and the way they built the classes, is it's all project based, which is great because not only are they doing and they're doing collaborative work now, which they didn't have before, but they just revised these courses earlier this year, like around like March, April, and now I'm starting to see the revisions in place. So I'm starting to teach these classes now with the revisions, and it's such a huge difference to see the AI incorporated it into it in an ethical way. But what's really cool is that they're also doing group projects, which I get to actually see their collaboration and connecting with each other. So even in an online environment, they can still connect with each other. So it's really great. So the class I have that's coming up, it's the theories class. And so that's one of my favorite classes to teach. I love teaching the theories class, but they actually have to do this assignment where they have to do a pitch deck, which is, like they're pitching to their idea, right? And then they do the presentation, and then they get together in peers or in a small group, and they actually have to give that presentation to their peers. And then their peers have to evaluate them on it. And then they fill out the rubric and all of that stuff and submit it. And then they do an individual reflection on that process and the ethical, decision making what they went through with that and how the collaboration process helped them. So that's authentic, right? Because it's amazing, those type of assignments. I always love grading those because it's always great to see their, how they go about it and how they are able to complete those assignments. So it's really fun to see those as an instructor.
The adopting and reflective approach is it's very, very important to avoid the entire use of AI. Also to discuss the use of AI and the responses, to evaluate it, to reflect on it, on the responses generated. For example, we suggest in our session plan for the teachers, we suggest, for example, for every session, we need to do an AI-based activity. And it's different every session, but eventually the teacher would ask the students, for example, they can give them a topic, and the students can be in two groups, and they make a debate. One group, they use AI with their research or looking for the answer, and the other group, they don't use AI. They use the secondary sources, or the regular articles and other things. And after that, they compare the responses and their findings, and they can discuss which one is more accurate, which one is more factually checked. You know what I mean? So this practice of openly discussing the use of AI will teach the learners the limitations of AI, and when to take the response as it is, or when to double check it for accuracy and non-bias.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's wonderful. And and that can actually be the bonus section of the episode. I love that, because that's a great example of how to turn that into that way to make it authentic. And I love that, because we're always, as educators, trying to find authentic ways that will help them in the workforce. And instead of having because I've run across this before in curriculum development, and it's a little disheartening when I see an undergraduate or graduate level course. In this case, it was a graduate psychology course that we were revising. And when I was doing my pre-ID review before the revision kicked off, Hamza, it was, I kept looking through the syllabus, and I saw assignment after assignment was paper, and then another paper. So 8 weeks of papers. That's all it had, was papers. And I'm like, okay, I've got to make some suggestions here. I'm like, so I was looking at what the deliverable was and what they were being asked to do. And I'm like, okay, can we make this a PowerPoint instead? Or can we make this, so I was trying to come up with ideas. I'm like, first of all, that's got to be just disengaging for students. But then for instructors to have to grade a paper that's like 750 to 1,000 words, or even ones that were like 2,000 words, I'm like, that's a lot. I mean, 250 words is on average a page. So yeah, that's a lot of writing. By the end, I'm sure they would be burned out. Both instructor and student would be burned out with 8 papers. So I think authentic assessment is so important. Yeah.
And the assessors will use maybe AI to assess the students' work and give them feedback. Do that. Now it's a thing,
right?
Yeah, it's a thing now also, which is really unfortunate.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's has a disadvantage.
It's an unfortunate thing. So
sides,
yeah. So it's always good to look for those opportunities where we can provide that more authentic assessment. And so I think AI can be a tool for that too, to kind of say, we do this too in curriculum. We'll take an existing, this is cool, actually. We'll take an existing discussion question, and if it's tied to professional standards, like for example, counseling, what we're doing right now is at the university I work for, we just got accreditation for counseling, for the counseling program. So it's called KCREP for short. And so we're having to, now that the programs are accredited, we have to switch over from the 2016 standards to the 2024 standards. And that has to be done by July of next year. But we can't just do that all in one fell swoop. We have to do course by course, right? And that takes time to revise the courses. So what we've been doing is we've been taking that existing discussion question, taking the objective it's tied to, and then the new standards, and plugging that into our, not an external tool. We have an internal closed system AI tool, but we plug it in and we're like, hey, does this meet the standards, and does it meet the objective? And if not, can you give suggestions on how we can revise it to make it better? And I give guardrails to AI. I'm like, because if you don't give it guardrails, this, it will give you a discussion question that is almost like an assignment. I'm like, no, this needs to be a discussion question. So I give it guardrails, and I'm like, responses should usually be about 200 to 250 words. And I think as long as AI knows that, it knows kind of what your parameters are, it can give you better responses. So knowing that prompt engineering is so important, but it's really interesting because it helps guide our curriculum, and we don't use it, for what it is, but it just gives us ideas. And then we have the subject matter experts tweak it a little bit and refine it. So it's a really neat process to see how AI can kind of work even in curriculum design too, as well.
Yeah. Sometimes you find I find myself just lose it with the ChatGPT, for example, or even Gemini. They don't get me. You know what I mean? I keep asking them, and eventually I would say, you know what, forget about it. I'll just rely on my human mind, to figure it out. Yeah, I have to do the hard work.
Exactly. Right. I love it. So as we wrap up this episode, I wanted to pose one final question. So kind of looking 1 year ahead, what do you think is a single capacity every student should have for responsible AI use, both in their academic and professional work?
As you said, 1 year ahead, it's just guessing what could be happen in the AI field and what can be invented. But I think the one thing that students can carry with themselves in the journey is building the moral awareness, or the moral integrity, or the righteousness, the academic integrity and honesty. I think it's very important to build that in the students' character, because eventually we might fool the instructors, the assessors, even the AI detectors. But we cannot fool ourselves if we are doing something wrong, or if we are claiming this is our work, which is basically lying. Plagiarism is claiming something that isn't yours and claiming it's yours. So no matter, for example, always think that honesty is the key to academic integrity. And also another thing is critical thinking. We are the difference between us and the AI is we practice critical thinking. We need to use it in every aspect of our lives. And on the professional work side, you need to build your future character, and you need to build professionalism. What do you want to be? Do you want to where do you want to work? And think about your skills. What kind of skills you are building when you use AI? Are you activating the skills that God gave it to you? What are you doing with them? Are you using them? And also put yourself in the employer's shoes, the recruiter or the company you're working for. would you hire yourself if you cannot perform well, if simply the internet was shut down or there's no access to internet or AI? So would you be able
Yeah.
to do the same task without the use of AI, or you always need to ask AI how should I do it, and they instruct you? Yeah, I think these can be carried out with every students, and they should be fine eventually.
I think that's great. I love that. Kind of makes me think of, math, and can students do math without a calculator? Maybe not. So it's kind of the same thing with AI. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, during my research, I found out that when the calculator was invented, I think back in the 60s or something like that, there was a protest by mathematicians. They were protesting the use of calculator, and they said it's the end of math as we know it. And so it's the same. It's just a tool, and I noticed that when we try to do a simple calculations, we always go to our phone and open the calculator to do it. The human mind is just like any muscle, or maybe it's an actual muscle, I don't know, but you need to exercise it in order for it to stay working, so
right.
exercise it by think like
Right.
try first with your own relying on your own mind, then use AI to get another perspective maybe, or to double check your thinking process maybe. And you'll be surprised how sometimes your thinking is much better than what AI gave you.
Right. Exactly. Wow. Well, thank you, Hamza, for
Thank you so much.
starting this series with clear classroom ready playbook AI for norms and learning first design, because that's what it's all about. So next time in part 2, we're going to unpack learner autonomy and show how to calibrate self-direction using Knoll's self-directed learning, known as SDL, and Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. I know I was going to get that one wrong, but I did good, pretty good. Or ZPD, let's call it ZPD for short. But I just wanted to, share what that was. Yep. So we'll start that in part 2. So just real quickly before we end, Hamza, where can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you if they want to, connect with you?
Well, I'm not on social media, but I think the only social media I use is LinkedIn, so they can just write Hamza Sami, my name, and they can connect with me right there. Yeah.
Great, I love that, and that's how we connected. Yeah. So yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, and we'll be back for part 2. Appreciate it.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much for your time.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast episode today. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to help keep the podcast going, you can share it with a friend or colleague, leave a heartfelt review, or offer a monetary contribution. Every act of support, big or small, makes a difference, and I'm truly thankful for you.